Happy fourth day of Easter. It's April 8th. I'm Monsignor Landry, National Director of the Pontifical Mission Societies, coming to you from a Manhattan rooftop. In today's gospel, we have one of the most famous scenes of all time that describes the church's journey throughout the centuries. It's the scene when Jesus met the two disciples on the road to Emmaus. They were walking dejected, thinking all their hopes in Jesus had been crushed by his crucifixion. And Jesus appeared to them in his risen body as they were making a 7-mile journey downhill into darkness. And I don't think I have to explain that symbolism. As they were turning their back on Jerusalem, the holy city, and all it symbolized, and were walking further and further away from the light and further from the summit of God's existence into the valley. And yet Jesus meets them like an anonymous wayfarer in his risen body, unrecognizable to them at first. And he just buds into their conversation. What are you discussing as you walk about the way? And then they said all the things that have recently happened in Jerusalem. And Jesus, as if he didn't know, said, what things? And they described Jesus and how they had placed their hopes in him, all the good things that he had done. But then he had been crucified, and that stunned them. And then some women were saying that they had seen him and he was alive. So Jesus said to them something super important. Oh, how slow of heart you are to believe all that the prophets have given. Slow, not of head, but of heart. Because their will wasn't yet in it. Their heart, the center of their being, their love wasn't yet in it. They were resistant to commit themselves to this truth that they were hearing. And so Jesus started with Moses and the prophets and explained how all the prophecies of the Old Testament converged in him. He proved to them, using Abel and Isaac and the suffering servant in Isaiah and the just man beset by the evildoers in wisdom and so many other citations, that it wasn't a contradiction that the crucifixion happened, but it was a confirmation of all the messianic prophecies. And that's when their hearts that were slow to believe began to burn. They would say later, were not our hearts burning as he spoke the word of God to them? They began to believe in the Messiah. But Jesus wasn't done. He made as if he was going to continue after they reached their town of Emmaus, but they invited him to stay. Stay with us, Lord, they said. And Jesus did stay with them, just like he wants to stay with us until the end of time. They go into the house, and while they were seated at table, Jesus took bread, just like he had 3 days earlier, blessed and broke it and gave it to them. He celebrated the Eucharist in their home. This was the second manifestation, the Eucharist of the one eternal sacrifice of Jesus from the Last Supper in Calvary. And that's when they recognized him in the breaking of the bread, that euphemism for Jesus' celebration of the Eucharist. The appearance of Jesus, risen from the dead, walking with them, speaking to them, then disappeared because he was staying with them until the end of time in the Eucharist. We presume they consumed the Eucharist, but then they did something extraordinary. Even though they had walked 7 miles downhill into darkness, they ran 7 miles uphill in the pitch black because they couldn't even wait until the morning in order to be able to share what Jesus had done for them. The church is an Emmaus journey, the liturgy of the word in which Jesus explains himself, the liturgy of the Eucharist, but then its mission, as we're blessed, like those disciples in Emmaus, to run out, to announce to others that Jesus is truly risen and is, in fact, staying with us in the Holy Eucharist. This is our mission. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia.